Hi everyone, Susan Storm here, and today we are going to dive into how INTJs experience stress, what grip stress is like for them, and what they can do about it. Now, if you're new to my channel and you're wondering who I am, I'm a certified MBTI practitioner and the founder of a website called psychologyjunkie.com, where I've written over 1,000 articles about the 16 Myers-Briggs personality types as well as the 9 Enneagram types. I'd love to see you there if you'd like to find out more. But for now, let's dive into how INTJs experience stress, what they do about it, and some unusual coping mechanisms that might surprise even them. So, INTJs are often called the masterminds of the personality world. They're known for being highly strategic, visionary, calculated. These are the types of people who are usually planning 5 moves ahead all the time. But what happens when life doesn't go according to plan? What happens when stress starts to eat away at that clear vision or that need for control and having a strategy and knowing what to expect? That's when stress kicks in, and it can show up in several different ways. What we're going to talk about first is everyday stress. Stress that's not too extreme, it's like right there in the middle. And when INTJs are experiencing this everyday stress, they tend to lean on their more natural personality preferences. They become more true to type, more INTJ-like. And generally, this looks like retreating from the world, problem solving, getting away from people, needing to get inside their own heads in order to realize or solve the problem. So when INTJs are under this moderate amount of stress or this medium amount of stress, they're going to pull away from people. They're going to seem more quiet and detached. They need to try to get away from anything in their surroundings that could distract them from solving the problem. They need to cut out stimulation. That means noise, bright lights, any kind of outer stimulation. They become more sensitive to that. They're also going to become much more analytical, more blunt. They're going to be less tuned into the emotional world because right now they're putting all their energy into solving this problem, which means any kind of emotional responsiveness is going to be shut down because they can't do both at the same time. So often, what's helpful for INTJs in these situations is enter an almost sensory deprived state where they have nothing, no lights on, no sound to hear, their phone's not in the same room, and they can just quiet everything down and just close their eyes and get into their own head. And that's where they can start organizing everything that's been going on for them, kind of like Sherlock Holmes, if you've ever seen Sherlock and he has to get into his mind palace. So before we go further, let's look at the kinds of things that do create stress for INTJs. Number one would be overloaded schedules with very little time for introspection. INTJs can handle a lot of tasks, but they don't particularly like being really busy. They need unstructured time to process, to think, to get into their own particular interests, to be alone. And so a really busy, overloaded schedule tends to create a lot of stress for them. INTJs are introverts, which means their natural focus, the focus that is going to energize them, is going to be on the inner world, the world inside their own head. And so, if they're constantly having to put their energy into the external world, whether that's through social obligations, tasks, activities, or sensory stimulation, then that is going to create an energy depletion where they just run empty. Another thing would be excessive noise or stimulation. INTJs are very sensitive to the external world, to lights, sounds, smells. Many INTJs identify as highly sensitive people in the sensory aspect of the term. Part of this is because INTJs have what's called inferior extroverted sensation. If you're new to cognitive functions, don't worry about it, but it basically means that one of their weaker functions is this function that's all about responding and absorbing stimulation from the world around them. So as you go to a club or a party and there's like flashing lights and music and people dancing and someone's talking to you and you have to be really responsive to all these things and absorb all this data at once, that ability tends to be much weaker for INTJs and tends to be one that creates stress for them. Having to use it for a prolonged period of time tends to create a lot of stress for them. So, because of that, INTJs in really stimulating environments tend to wear out really fast, and their stress levels tend to spike really quickly in those situations. Number three, disruptions to plans. INTJs like to have a plan. They like to know what to expect. They like to have everything organized and in order. And any kind of disruption feels like a slap in the face to them or worse. They hate it when their carefully curated course is thrown off. Number four, feeling stuck in very mundane, detail-heavy tasks. That could be organizing their taxes or housekeeping. I know lots of INTJ moms whose lives very much revolve around the mundane, day-to-day, daily tasks that are essential for raising a family. While this is fine, they can definitely tolerate some of this and they tend to be pretty organized, responsible people. They need to have space to get into their own interests, which tend to be more big picture. INTJs are interested in anything abstract, conceptual. They're interested in understanding why we're here or these really big scientific questions. What are the other galaxies like? What's string theory? Their minds are constantly trying to grasp the theory of everything, the meaning of everything, of the entire universe. And so when they have to constantly push those big picture thoughts aside to focus on the minute details, that tends to make them feel very unfulfilled and stressed, like they're missing out on the most important things in their life and they're going to run out of time. Another thing that creates stress for INTJs is working with people they see as lazy or incompetent. INTJs like it when people can focus on the task at hand and get it done, when they can see the goal and work their way there in an efficient way. And when they're stuck with people who are very procrastinating or incompetent, lazy, selfish, complaining all the time, that kind of thing will quickly drain their energy. Next, being in an environment where their skills are not appreciated. I think this would stress anyone out, but it still counts. INTJs tend to be very visionary. They tend to be very logical. They're good at making plans. They're good at making strategies. They're good at thinking outside the box. But if they're in a situation where that isn't valued, then that can create a lot of stress for them. And from my experience working with INTJs, I've often seen this not so much in work, because many times their strengths are seen as an asset in the workplace. I've seen this more in relationships where their more detached, blunt nature is seen as a flaw or an insensitivity or a weakness. And they end up getting into issues with their partners because perhaps they're not as emotionally responsive as their partner wants them to be. Maybe they gave their advice too directly, or maybe they need more alone time than their partner. Often there's misunderstandings where the partner in the relationship doesn't understand that the INTJ's personality well enough to know that what they're doing, the way that they act, the way that they come across, more quiet nature, more independent nature, more emotionally guarded nature, is not personal. It's not like they don't care about the other person. It's not like they don't love the other person. They just don't express themselves like an ESFJ would. INTJs do process their feelings more internally than other types. They need more personal space than other types do. But this doesn't mean they're any less capable of caring and loving than another type would be. It just shows up differently for them. So these relational issues tend to be, at least for what I see, the source of their stressors when it comes to not feeling like their strengths are appreciated or that they can really use them or fully be themselves. In relationships, many INTJs feel like they've got to put on a feeler persona, and this is especially true for INTJ women. They feel like they've got to act more like ISFJ women. I'm sorry, guys, I keep like wiping my eyes because it's allergy season and everything's itchy right now. Okay, so another thing that creates stress for INTJs, oh my gosh, pollen. Anyway, would be having to focus entirely on the here and now. INTJs like to think ahead. They like to have some kind of vision or idea that they're always working towards. And so when they have to focus entirely on what's happening now, but they can't make a plan for what's going to happen later, that really stresses them out. And I can relate to this as well, as a fellow INTJ woman. Right now in my life, we're not sure. We know we need to move, but we're not sure. We're trying to decide between several different states. And then trying to get my daughter into college, and she's trying to decide between several different colleges. And we have to wait on other people to give us certain information before we can narrow down our decisions. And we've been waiting for a while. And that for me is really stressful because I want to know exactly where we're going. I want to have a picture in my head of where it's going to be. And I'm in this place now where I have to take it very one day at a time. And that's just not a happy place for INTJs. We want to be able to have a picture in our head of what's going to happen so that we can organize our lives around making that come to fruition in the best possible way. All right, so now that we've talked about what creates stress for INTJs, let's talk about when stress gets really extreme and out of control. Let's talk about grip stress. An INTJ who is experiencing grip stress, they don't look as much like the master strategist or the chess master. They look a little bit more scattered, impulsive, and reactive. They might lash out, make silly mistakes, snap at people, overindulge in food. There's lots of ways that this can show up, but why does this happen? Normally, when INTJs experience stress, they're going to try to solve everything by leaning into intuition and thinking, their top two functions. This means that they're going to try to pull away and try to grasp a pattern or create a strategy for dealing with the problem. But over time, if that tactic isn't working and they keep trying to use that way of solving the problem, they can wear out their intuition and their thinking. All of us tend to think that our dominant function is the right tool for all the jobs. So if you're an ENFJ, you tend to think everything can be solved through feeling, right? Everything's going to be solved through talking it out and connecting with people and understanding what everyone needs. But if you're an INTJ, you're going to think, I've got to solve this stress by getting away and intuiting some kind of master strategy. But if life is continuously stressful and that is not solving all the problems and you keep leaning on that to solve all the problems, then what can happen is you can wear out your intuitive side, you can wear out your thinking side. And when you've worn them out completely because stress is really ongoing or it's really extreme or chronic, then what happens is those two functions can essentially fall asleep, and then your inferior function, which for INTJs is extroverted sensing, takes the wheel of your life. Now, extroverted sensing for an ESCP or an ESFP, that's their dominant function. That's their hero function. So it tends to be really mature and they have a lot of certainty and experience with it. For INTJs, extroverted sensing is the function that they tend to have less experience with. They tend to have a more dismissive attitude towards extroverted sensing, unless they're really healthy and they've spent a lot of time connecting with that function and understanding how to harness it in a healthy and productive way. So when extroverted sensing takes the wheel for INTJs, they start becoming more impulsive. They start becoming more sensory focused. Extroverted sensing is all about living in the present, noticing all the details in the present, enjoying the now, experiencing and immersing yourself in your senses and enjoying the moment and taking advantage of opportunities. So INTJs in the grip of extroverted sensing don't use it in a particularly healthy way many times. They don't use it to just go watch a sunset and savor a cup of herbal tea. More often than not, they use it in these kind of extreme ways. When you're in the grip, you tend to use your inferior function in an extreme way. So it could look like, instead of sipping herbal tea, it could look like drinking a whole bottle of wine first thing in the morning. Or it could look like eating a dozen donuts because you're really stressed out and you're just like, I need to feel something. It can look like being more reactive to the things happening around you, lashing out more quickly when you're angry, shopping and spending way too much money, doing things you just wouldn't ordinarily do. INTJs are normally very planful, they're normally very cautious, very careful and strategic, and they really think things through before they jump into action. But in the grip, INTJs jump into action before they think things through, which can be very overwhelming for them because they're just not used to operating in that way. But it seems almost like they can't control it. Some INTJs channel all their energy into running or exercising, like extreme running or exercising, running till they can't possibly take another step. Other INTJs become obsessed with their surroundings and cleaning, and they frantically clean every inch of their house. They're pouring all their energy into their senses. And this can look very indulgent, it can look very reactive, it can look very reckless at times. So what do you do about it? What are some ways INTJs can cope with stress in a way that won't lead them down this dark path? Number one, it's important for INTJs to get some time alone to get away from all the stress, the stimulation, the demands, and the people around them. Getting some alone time and taking some deep breaths, really important. Put your legs shoulder width apart and just hang your head down. This actually is a proven way to reduce stress. It sounds funny, but it actually works. Hang down from the waist and just hang your head down between your legs. It actually really helps. And then also taking deep breaths. Inhale for 4 seconds, hold your breath, and then exhale for 4 seconds. Things like that can really just physically help you to feel more calm. Another really important thing is to reduce sensory stimulation. That is going to skyrocket all the stress you're already experiencing. So shut off bright lights, shut off music, put your phone away, turn off notifications on your phone. Just let everyone know you need a little space to just think and process and calm down. Number three, say no to non-essential stuff. If your schedule is cluttered with a whole bunch of tasks and obligations and appointments, and there's any of those things that you can reduce, please do it. It will make you feel almost immediately better. Five, check in, or four, I don't remember which number on, check in with yourself. Have you had enough sleep? Do you need rest? Have you had enough water? Do you need a drink? Have you had enough to eat? It's very normal for intuitive dominant types like INFJs, INTJs, ENFPs, and ENTPs to become so fixated on ideas and to become so stuck in their mind that they lose track with the physical world around them and they forget to eat or they forget to drink or they forget to get enough sleep. So it's really important for these types, if you're an INTJ, to just do a physical check-in with yourself to see if there's anything that needs tending, because that can actually help. If you are really stressed out and you're in the grip and you don't realize it, but you had only 2 cups of water today and it's 9 o'clock at night, you may not realize you're super dehydrated and that's impacting your mood. And so you should definitely take some time to check in with a physical assessment to make sure there's nothing that really needs to be taken care of. Next, if you're in the grip and your sensing side is getting out of control, find some calming sensing activity that you can do that can help you to recalibrate without spiraling out of control. So this could look like watching a sunset while drinking some herbal tea. It could look like taking a hike in nature and just absorbing all the details around you. It could be like taking your phone camera and going outside and looking to find 10 beautiful things or 10 unique angles that you could explore the world around you. It could, if you have a really high energy or combined with like a fight or flight response or an aggressive response, you could just try punching a pillow or driving out somewhere where no one's going to hear you and just screaming in your car. I actually was told to do this by my therapist at one point because I was going through a lot of stressful stuff at the time and I was managing way too much in my life. And she said, one thing you should really do is drive out somewhere like where there isn't anyone, some country road or something, lock the car and just scream. I didn't actually take her advice, but I probably should have. And if you have the time and you're more committed to your personal well-being, then this would be a good suggestion for you as well. Another thing that can be very helpful for INTJs is to just solve a minor problem. Sometimes we're so overwhelmed by these big, huge problems in our life that are costing us a whole bunch of stress that we're just burning out. And sometimes when we're in a grip state and we can't really think properly and we can't really process well, just solving a small problem can help get us back on the right track. And what I mean by a small problem is something really small. Organize your sock drawer, proofread an email, wash the dishes, like something really small and mundane, but something that will make you feel like, okay, I've accomplished something. Another way that you can get out of a grip stress state is by tuning in a little bit to your feeling side. And you can do this by listening to music that emotionally resonates with you in some way, or reading a book and getting into the character's stories. I'm not talking about going out and talking to someone and getting into your feelings with them, although that might be good for you. I'm talking about awakening your emotional side, getting in touch with what matters to you as a person. So go for a drive and listen to sad songs, or watch a movie about someone who's also going through a hard time in their life. Do something that will help you feel like you're not quite as alone in your emotional state. Another thing that can help is cutting back on sugar and caffeine. They feel like a fix, but they can often fuel that overstimulated state. Herbal tea might sound boring, but it can feel like a hug in a cup when you most need it. I hope this has been helpful. I have written a lot about the 16 Myers-Briggs personality types and INTJs in particular, and you can find many more articles on my website at psychologyjunkie.com. I've also written a book specifically for INTJs called The INTJ Understanding the Strategist. You can check that out on my website as well or on Amazon. Like and subscribe for more videos like this, and be sure to ask me a question if you have one. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Talk to you next time. Bye, everyone.